In this classic WoW video, I am going to show you how to properly sim your gear using the website WoWSims so you can increase your DPS in raids. Now, jumping right into the video, before we actually go to the website, my advice to you is to go on to CurseForge and to download the WoWSims exporter. And what this does is it lets you type in WSE into game and you can generate code. And what this basically does is it lets you import all your talents and your gear and enchants and even professions directly into the WoWSims website. So I'm going to copy this and then we'll go to the website itself. And also WoWSims has every version of Classic ranging from Era all the way to Mob. But for the sake of this video, because I am a Classic degenerate, I'm going to click on Classic, learn more. Since I play Mage, I'm going to click on Mage. And as you can see, it brings us directly into the Mage Sims portion of the website. And because I already exported with the add-on, what I'll do is come to import, click on add-on, paste the code, import, and it says import successful, and this is all my gear. Now, another thing that I need to do is I need to go and look at my talents, make sure my talents are okay, they look pretty good. And then we need to go over to rotation because the WoWSims website goes off a default and the default for mages is Frost. So what we need to basically do here is it will be on auto when you first come in. You want to click on APL and then you'll see these two things. We don't want to mess with auto cast other cooldowns. That is a mandatory and it needs to stay there. But because I am a Fire Mage and going into phase 5, we have a new rank of Fireball. I'll click on Frostbolt. I'll go to spells, go down to Fireball, and then I'll click rank 12 of Fireball. And I will go back over to my gear and let's try a sim. And as you can see, it's saying 1081.41. Now, you might be wondering, well, why is there a exclamation mark? And that is because I am wearing the Bloodvine set, and the 3 set gives you 2% critical strike. But because my professions, if you click on settings, I have alchemy and herbalism. Well, let's change profession to tailoring, and then let's save as a reference and then simulate. Well, that's giving me a plus 27 DPS bonus. That's a perfect example of simming your gear. So for the sake of this video, my mage is really decked out in gear. I'm already at 16% hit cap, and to explain how equivalency points works better, I am going to use a lower gear set which is sitting around 6% gear hit and 12% total hit due to the talents from Elemental Precision. Now, to explain equivalency points, if I go in and look at it, it's basically Sim's way of comparing items and multiplying the raw stats of the item with your current stat weights. And like it says, it doesn't necessarily mean more DPS. Now, how does hit and crit kind of tie in with equivalency points? As you can see, this set is wearing Blood Tinged Gloves and even Bandok Sash. Now, I could actually trade these items for items that have more crit instead of hit. Now, you might be wondering, why am I going to trade 2% hit for crit? Well, let's take a look. So I'm going to sim this, save as a reference, and then I'm going to do something like the Defiler's Cloth Girdle from Arathi Basin, and then we'll do like Netherwind Gloves. We'll sim it, which is going to be mediocre. It's more, so it's about 5 DPS bonus. But the real bonus here is that if you take a Frostbolt or a Fireball that doesn't crit, that's around anywhere from 1200 to 1500 baseline damage, versus a crit that is going to be 3000 plus damage. That's way better. You're trading 2% hit for more of a chance to do something like a 3000 plus Frostbolt or Fireball. Now, the reason why I'm explaining this is if you even resist on a boss and then your next cast is a crit, that crit makes not only up for the resist, but also makes up for that second cast. So you're basically doubling down on a cast. That's why crit is so important. And even with this set, you have 4% gear hit, 10% total hit, and then 37% crit. You could even take this further with these 2 items and get something like, Champion Silk Mantle, and then get something like Champion Silk Cowl, because it's 1% crit on the shoulders and 1% crit on the helm. Simulate that, plus 17 DPS, almost plus 18. That is why crit is so important than hit. When you're kind of lower gear, you shouldn't be going for every single item to get max hit. You're going to get that over time, by getting your best pieces, especially since we're going into phase 5. So if you're kind of a lower gear set, you're still working on rank 14, you should be focusing more on crit items like these than hit items. Now, you can even do this with even like a warlock setup. I'm going to take kind of like a lesser geared warlock. We're going to sim it. We're going to save, and then we'll trade something out with like, let's do the Defiler's belt again. And then we'll do like Nemesis gloves, do the Champion's Dreadweave, and the shoulders. So now if we look over here, we're getting like almost 4 DPS, but when Sims does calculate, it's basically only calculating your baseline spell power. Sims kind of has trouble when it calculates your crit, because crit is a chance. But if you look, you're getting about 4% crit than what you had. And if we swap that, you're basically trading 2% hit for 4% crit, which is way better. That's pretty much it. If you're like a high geared mage like I am, like I said, I'm pretty much just waiting to go into AQ, get things like Amulet of Eklanash and things like Darkstorm Gauntlets. That's all I'm kind of waiting for, compared to lower gear where you're kind of like having to look at your hit and your crit. But like I said, if you are lower gear and you're not a hit cap, especially warlocks, because warlocks are going to have a lot harder getting to hit cap than a mage, you shouldn't be going for the 16% hit cap. You should just be focusing on getting as much crit as you can while getting some pieces that do have hit on it. Now let's kind of go and take a look at melee. Melee, in my opinion, is a lot more straightforward. We're going to kind of take a look at a rogue here with his phase 2 bis. You got your standard Sinister Strike combat build. We'll go back over to gear. We'll make sure everything is right on the settings when it comes to world buff, and we will sim it, and then we'll save as a reference. Now, one thing to know as a melee class, if you're dual wielding, is that rogues tend to favor a slow main hand weapon. So we'll do something like High Warlords. The reason a rogue kind of goes for a slow hitting weapon is because Sinister Strike will hit more if a slow hitting weapon is in your main hand. Now, when it comes to offhands, they want a fast hitting offhand to apply things like deadly poisons a lot faster. So we'll do something like High Warlord's Razor, which is a 2.00 attack speed. I mean, you could go something like Purds, but for the sake of getting rank 14, we'll just choose the Dagger, and it's almost 40 DPS. So like I said, melee, in my opinion, is a lot more straightforward. Their baseline hit regarding Wowhead's data is 9%. It's 5% if you're fighting a level 60 boss, but 9% is kind of the baseline. They have a lot more room to work with when it comes to hit and crit. Like I said, weapons are really your main priority here. You know, if I go and choose something from like phase 5, like Death Dealer's Helm, you know, it's just gonna boost their DPS a lot more. So in my opinion, like I said, melee is a lot more straightforward compared to looking at how hit and crit kind of combine into, you know, being a caster and how much more crit is important. But like I said, if you were on the top end of your gear, you know, it doesn't really matter to trade hit items if you're already maxed at hit. You know, at this point, like I said, you're literally just waiting for AQ items. But if you're like making an alt, or you're looking to increase your DPS, you know, to maybe have your guild look at you a little bit more, then I would suggest start trading some hit pieces for crit pieces. And that's really all there is to it. I hope this video helped. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Got a single frost vulnerability. Holy.
I got 99.
Did you really? Nice. Mana igniting cord. That's this for me.